Good evening, good people of, well, the internet, or hopefully more and more people from the UK. I'm Ellis, and this is the Ellis broadcast. So if anybody has not tuned in before, what I've started doing is off the cuff. These are definitely off the cuff. Reviews of the week, or review of the news of the week. Yeah. That's what it is. I've started doing, so I've been doing social media. If anybody doesn't know who I am, I've been doing social media for the past, since October. Started doing little snippets of videos on social media. Realised that they're actually quite labour intensive, especially if you want to post a few a day. And I realised that a lot of them were just small little snippets of me just chatting what I like to talk about. And I realised, well, what's the point of me editing these things up? Why don't I just do it live? Warts and all. So here it is. Here's my stream. Now, I did start out as doing monologues. And I realised that monologues is not what I want to do. I don't want to sit there and pre-type up something and talk about some sort of, give some sort of philosophical sort of view of something, or give some sort of big long speech. 1 second. Here we go. Studio engineering. What's going off here? Just need to stop my virus scanner from doing a virus scan, because what it does, it slows down everything. Oh, it's not. Maybe it's just the internet being slow. Latency seems a bit weird here. No scam. Let's keep going. Yeah, it's a bit latency, it's a bit off. Oh, it's catching up now. There we go. My pigeons per second internet there. Right. So yeah, so I did start doing little snippets, realise that they're quite labour intensive, and realise, well, let's just do a stream off the cuff. Let's talk about what I want to talk about, and cut the monologues out, because I realise that's not me. I want to rant. I want to rant to you all like I would rant to anybody in my local pub. That's the best way to say it. The great bastion of free speech that is your local. Because it's one of the things I like to do. I like to go and walk the dog. On the way back, accidentally, on purposely, find myself inside a local, drinking a pint, and then, as you find, especially with the good people of the countryside like where I live, you find yourself in political discussions quite often. And you find yourselves with, well, quite like-minded people. Most of the time. But then I've never walked my dog and fell into a pub in maybe the city, maybe London. So maybe there's different opinions there. But anyway, what do I want to talk about today? What do I want to talk about today? So, ever since I've started doing this stream, I started doing streams since just before Christmas. The news in the week has been the gift that keeps on giving. Honestly, right? Honestly. Like, I'm having to take my pick of what news I want to do, rather than like having to scramble for things to talk about. It's been just the gift that keeps on giving, especially with me. So, oh yeah, I forgot to say, I talk about politics mainly, British politics. I might do a bit of a book review here and there, because I did sign myself up to my own self. What do you want to call it? New Year's resolution that I want to read a book a week, and I've been doing that actually. And I've just started David Starkey's Crown and Country, which I advise anybody to read, because of if that doesn't make you patriotic about being British, nothing else will. Or especially patriotic about being English, nothing else will. But anyway, yeah, do a bit, talk about books I'm reading, but then I mainly talk about the news, a bit of economics, well, political news and a bit of economics, maybe. But really, because there's been a lot going off in terms of geopolitics, a lot of sleaze in the Labour Party. You know, that Labour Party that was supposed to be the grown-ups. You know, it's all quiet now on a Subri's Twitter post. I think they're marred with just as much sleaze as it was when the Tories were out. So we've talked about that. And, well, there's been quite a lot of that lately with the Labour Party, hasn't there? But I think the biggest thing that's happened this week, especially for me in the news, right, is Rupert Lowe has finally come out and pushed Restore Britain, or create. Well, Restore Britain was already created as a movement, but they have now become a political party. Now, when I heard Rupert Lowe talk about this before, and this is not something that's come out of the blue. This is something that people have suspected is going to happen for quite a while. When I first learnt about this, right, I was sort of worrying a bit. I thought, was this going to be another, Advance UK, which, although Advance UK and the people that are part of Advance UK, it's like Ben Habib, I really quite like, and I quite like what he has to say. The criticism, I think, was from Rupert Lowe, actually, that it did sound like a pack of toothpaste. But that's not the main reason why I'm concerned. The main reason I'm concerned is because of it just sounded like another fragmented party on the centre-right. And although, like I say, I like a lot of things that Ben Habib says, he's just not going to win against the bastion that is Reform or the Teal Tories. So I was worrying that Rupert Lowe was going to be one of them. I worried that Rupert Lowe starting any sort of political party was going to be like that, right? But now he's started it. Now he's come out with his fucking kick-ass video. If anybody's seen it, so let's have a look. I've got it spooled up. No, not that one. I want to talk about that in a minute. Everybody's seen it. He's, as you can see, this is a, if anybody's been on my stream before, oh, why is my IT not working? There we go. Here we go. Right, this is, I am the producer, I am the back-end staff, I am the script writer, I am everything. So, as you can probably imagine, some of my stream might come across suspectedly a bit low budget, because it probably is. But anyway, yes, if anybody's seen Rupert Lowe's new video on YouTube, right, and if you haven't, please go and check it out. I just, these concerns that I had were just quashed straight away, especially, seen on social media, right? Rupert Lowe is, I think he's said to be the most popular politician on X, right? And I get it. If you go on his social media, right, on Restore Britain's social media or Rupert Lowe's own personal X profile, he's constantly hitting the right note. Constantly hitting what people were searching for out of reform. Constantly hitting the right views on immigration. Like for people like myself are absolutely concerned by. Constantly hitting the right views when it comes to the economy. Which again, people like myself are concerned by. Constantly hitting the fact that in Britain, it definitely feels like we should have some sort of, that we're all subject to some sort of skin-based colour privilege that I don't feel I see, okay? But we've been made to sort of feel shameful about our heritage and shameful about the people that we are for decades now. And now, finally, there's someone like Rupert Lowe coming out and saying, no, you shouldn't feel like that. This is Britain. This is your home. This is your country. You should be proud of where you come from. You should be proud of your country. And this is constant, the message that keeps coming and coming and coming with Rupert Lowe. And it's just hit home. It is hit home. I was when it come out, when this video come out, and I saw the response that Rupert Lowe was getting with Restore Britain on social media, aligning people from all ends of the spectrum on the centre right. You've got some of the most further parts, and you've got some of the most moderate parts, all coming together, going, and that's not because of Rupert Lowe is some sort of, absolute extremist, and that's not because Rupert Lowe is some sort of moderate, sort of Teal Tory, Lib Dem, warmed up Lib Dem in a costume, like I see reform, is because people are backing the winning horse. People know that Rupert Lowe is the best we're going to get. And people are getting in line, and you're seeing it. You're seeing it. And I think that's well exciting. I think it's exciting to be. But already you've got the... well, how do we describe these people? How do we describe them? I've got a note here. I did write some notes here. Yeah, you've got the absolute hardline reformers that just always seem to be the older generations, the boomers, the Gen Xers, people who have been voting for the shit governments that we've got now. They've ended up with the situation that we're in politics, right? I'm not blaming all of them, but it seems to be that reform, which has been brilliantly put on social media today, over the past couple of days, I think pushed by people, and well, not pushed, which has been noticed by people. Oh, in fact, it wasn't. It was academic agent Nina Parvini, I think that's pronounced his name right, said it brilliantly. You know, reform have, instead of being in line with the people in the new media who are backing a centre-right party, who want a centre-right party in government, who want small government, small tax, control of immigration, people who are researched, well-read, getting online, pushing their voice, they're instead trying to appeal to the boomer centrist vote. And I feel like it's these radicalised reformers that are in this bracket who are now on social media waving their arms around. You know, you're seeing it. You're seeing it. Oh, they're just going to split the vote. They're just going to split the vote and it's going to get Labour back in and the Unity Party. What a load of nonsense. I can tell you it's a load of nonsense. Because the Unity Party ain't going to have much seats left by the time they get to the next general election. If you look at the polls at the moment, Labour are going to be down to 4 seats. But even if it's 4 seats, right? Even if it's 40 seats, that is a radical decline, a massive decline. And I honestly believe after this next general election, Labour are going to be finished. They are going to be some party that, you know, you knew about decades ago that now just don't exist anymore. Some fringe, maybe some fringe party on the left that pops up every so often, but you know they're going to be absolutely finished. And Keir Starmer knows that. He knows that because if it's been rumoured that the reason why Keir Starmer hasn't been pushed out with all this Mandelson gate is because if he had threatened his MPs, the cabinet and the backbenchers, saying that you need to get behind me, stop trying to push me out, because if not, I'll call a general election and all of you will lose your seats. They know it. They know they finish. And that is why Labour are a dangerous party. But anyway, I'll come on to that after this. I'm going to speak a bit about Mandelson after this, actually. And I didn't actually know about it until I started researching on this. Did a bit of research before I did the stream. But it's fucking exciting. Rupert Lowe has come out and made this party. And the big message in his video is fucking brilliant, right? I'm not going to play it here because people just need to watch it if you've not seen it. And it's on a farm, and he's saying that farmers don't operate in election cycles, right? They operate for the long term. They sacrifice, they make sacrifice. And that is the message that Rupert Lowe is saying. You know, he's not going on there saying that Britain isn't actually broken. It's not broken. You know, like the Tories were, like Kemi Badenoch. Apparently that before Robert Jenrick came over to reform, he was that Conservatives were trying to say that trying to push or try to block their cabinet members and shadow cabinet members and people and their backbenchers from saying Britain is broken. I did a video about that actually. Yeah, but Britain is broken. And that's exactly, Rupert Lowe's done this video with no bullshit. And he's saying it correctly, that there's going to be some hard times to come. He's saying that instead of scouting for the same greasy pole climbers, ex-MPs, Tory MPs, whatever else, like reforms filling himself full of, all these deadwood, low-quality Tory MPs, Restore Britain's not going to be canvassing for this sort of nonsense. They're going to be canvassing for Britain's best. Like I've been saying about in my streams previous to this, if you watched the video a few weeks ago with, I think it's Quite Right podcast, with Spectator podcast, where they had, bloody hell, Dominic Cummings on. Right, they had Dominic Cummings on, and the thing that he said that Reform should be doing is scouting up and down the UK for Britain's best. And what I mean by Britain's best is engineers, veterans, doctors, the CEOs, business owners, the best that Britain can bring. And he was saying in there that you need to be truthful to these people. You're not going to be able to command what you can on Civvy Street, or that's veteran speak there, or army speak, in the industry or in the private sector. You're not going to be able to command the money that you're going to get as being an MP or someone trying to change this country for the better. But there is more fulfillment in making sure that this country works for your children and children's children than it is earning a buck today in a country that's highly likely to go downhill if it carries on with the same trajectory that it is now. And that's what Rupert Lowe said in his video. They want to bring Britain's best to the table. They know that government needs that. They know that they cannot continue with the same greasy pole climbers in government. They do not care for changing this country for the better. They do not care at all. In fact, if anything, sometimes changing the country for the better is disincentivised. Sometimes that doesn't work for them, because if it will not make them appealing at the next general election, they're only bothered about keeping their seats. And it's not surprising. Look at most of the cabinet. Most of these people have just been career politicians all their lives. If they get kicked out, they've got no job. They're done for. They're in the job centre queue like everyone else. So no wonder we've got lots and lots of people in government that are just in it for themselves, not in it for the country. Now, I've been doing videos and videos about this, the next thing I want to talk about, for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's the same, I'm still talking about Restore Britain, but whoever gets in next, right, and I've said it over and over again, right, if you read the history, one of the greatest prime ministers that Britain has ever had is William Pitt the Younger, right? Now, he faced a similar financial situation with Britain than what that we have now. And in one term, he managed to right it. He managed to right the wrongs. And I believe we're in the same situation here. We have only one term left to deal with this situation in this country. The economic downturn. The government that doesn't represent its electorate. The bureaucracy. The quangos. The parasitical state that's taking all your money. That's taking your money away through taxes and bureaucracy. To give to the idle. To give to the people who refuse to work, to piss it up the wall on projects that are not in the benefit of this country at all. Now, William Pitt the Younger was facing a similar dire situation with the economy, and he managed to turn around in one term. But there's a difference between that time and now. Not only was it hundreds of years ago, but they had longer terms back then. They had 7 years. They had the empire back then, which created access to trade. Unfiltered access to trade. They had a government that was absolutely in charge. What I mean by in charge is they had a government or a cabinet or MPs where the sovereignty of this country was absolutely with them. Not with the Quango, not with the permanent secretary, not with the bundle of civil servants. It sat with them. The buck stopped with them. Now, why do I bring up William Pitt the Younger? Right? Because William Pitt the Younger is said to be one of the greatest prime ministers this country has ever had. Widely said to be, right? So what I'm saying here is this next government needs to be better. Needs to be better than the greatest prime minister that this country has ever had, and the party that he had back then. Because it's not a one-man band, it's absolutely a team. Now we have a system at the moment doesn't even allow to create a William Pitt the Younger. Won't even allow it. Look at it. Look at the Uni Party. Look at the state of Labour. Look at the state of them. They would push that person out straight away. Because it means that someone else won't be able to climb up the greasy pole. Now look at what's coming in next. So you look at reform. Is that going to be Nigel Farage? The guy that just likes to keep his powder dry. You know, the guy that just keeps flip-flopping. 1 minute, mass deportations is not a thing. We can't do that. Next minute, you know, oh yeah, we'll definitely do that. After Rupert Lowe has shifted the Overton window. You know, the guy that was going to hold the grooming gangs inquiry. An independent grooming gangs inquiry. Because we all know this government that's in now have no intention of doing a robust inquiry within their time here. Or if they do, it's going to be the end of their term. Because they know it will be devastating. They know it. Nigel Farage promised that. Where was it? Nowhere to be seen. Who ended up doing that? Oh yeah, Rupert Lowe. So, can you see Nigel Farage being that person? Better than William Pitt the Younger? The great appeaser? Because that's what he is. Now, what I want to look at here. Now, I thought this was a brilliant post. Now, if you read here, now this is one of these people, right? He's one of these people, one of these radicalized reformers, right? That believe that for Nigel Farage to win, right, they need to, well, as I said here, most people don't get politics. You can't win elections by running far outside of the Overton window. You have to be patient, gently nudging at the edge until the public catches up. Nigel gets it. Well, you've got Dan here from the Lotus Eaters, which said it brilliant. Right, this come back in it. So reformers need to be leaning on the secretly based theory of Farage. He just appoints all these Tories, followers of Islam, and giving those interviews denying that he will ever attempt to deal with Islam to hide his power levels until the public catch up with him. And that's what I think it is. I think people are under this illusion that soon as he's appealed to the centrist vote, soon as he's appealed, he'll get into government. And then he'll be based. He'll be just as based as Rupert Lowe. We all know it's nonsense, right? We all know it's nonsense. We all know he's appeasing. We all know he's the centre right appeasement vote. We all know he's just a teal Tory, right? And that's what it is. Now, but what's changed recently is that for a lot of people on the centre right, we had no choice. Like, I was probably going to have to vote reform because we have no choice. You know, who else are we going to vote? Labour? Fuck that. Tories? Fuck that. You know, Tories cannot be trusted. You know, I think Kemi, I don't know, he's saying a lot of good things at the moment. in government. I think she is. But every single time they say a good thing, you've always got that niggly bit in the back of your mind that, well, Boris promised a lot of these things. And he just delivered the exact opposite. In fact, he was just another part of Labour. It was just like they were just acting like the old Labour before that, and now the Tories in there. You know, you can almost put a Rizzler paper between the difference between Labour and the Tories. Even though the Tories were claiming, coming out saying, we're going to do this, we're going to curb immigration, we're going to lower taxes. They just did the exact opposite. I saw them professing to say that they were going to do the exact thing, to lower taxes and lower immigration, right? So even when Kemi says these things that are aligned with what the centre-right want, she can't be trusted. Because we've seen it. We've seen what they promised last time and they didn't deliver. So I think it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while for the Tories to regain their reputation. But I do not believe that they are going to be hounded, absolutely hounded, as much as Labour are after this next general election. The annihilation of Labour is going to be massive. Massive, massive, massive. This is why I don't get it. If Nigel, if Keir, definitely, if Keir Starmer actually promised, if Keir Starmer actually threatened that if you don't get behind me, I'm going to kick you all out. I'm going to call a general election, right? And if I call a general election, you're all finished. If he actually threatened that, well, you're only putting off the inevitable. You're only putting off the inevitable. And this is why I don't get, these career politicians apparently in government, what are they going to do? Because they're not going to exist. They're not going to be in a seat after this next general election. Unless they make radical change, which Labour do not have the capacity for it. So, they should have just called his bluff. Well, all right then, because we're finished anyway. But then, that would mean they won't get the golden goose. They won't be able to sit in government and caress their greasy palms with backhanders and whatever else, and just won't be able to set themselves up with some sort of speaking gig once Labour have been finished, that they can earn lots and lots of money outside of government. Maybe that's probably what it is. I don't know. But yeah, really, really excited about Restore Britain. Really, really excited. Yeah. Maybe I'm, maybe I'm being naive, but it's the first time I felt that there is someone that's got a political party that I can absolutely get behind. I can absolutely clap for. If they have a person in my constituency, right, I'll absolutely vote them, hands down. Without a shadow of a doubt, right? There is now an alternative to reform that reflects my political opinion, and I am so happy for it. And I hope they stage someone as an MP in my constituency. Maybe I'll stand as an MP here if it was called for. I'm somebody that understands that in government it's hard to make change, because if they are, even though if Restore Britain get in, they'd be totally different. In fact, yeah, it'd be totally different. What I was going to say is that up until now, recent governments have been swayed by the media. Right? They've been swayed by public opinion to a certain extent. Right? You can change more in government in the new media sphere, which I think's happened. It's definitely shifted the over to window towards the centre right, being acceptable. If you talk about some immigration and cutting back certain bits of the economy, cutting back certain bits of the state to help the economy 5 years ago, probably would have had police knocking at my door, right? So, or definitely would have had my social media shut down 4 or 5 years ago. And through one big thing that Elon Musk buying X, but through the sort of pushing on in the media, especially the new media, because of the mainstream media, they're just following the party line as per the majority of the time anyway. It's definitely shifted the Overton window. I feel like being in the new media sphere at the moment, you can have a better sway on government than it seems that any MP can inside government. So I've always sat on that thing. I'd love to get involved with government. I love politics. I love talking about it, right? But I've always sat on that sort of understanding that, but getting involved in politics doesn't make change, because look at the state of it. And if you read books like Why Westminster Works and Why It Doesn't by Ian Dunt, you understand that it's actually really, really hard to drive change in government. Actually, a lot of MPs have no power whatsoever to drive change. But now we restore Britain. Now the beacons have lit, and there's someone, a political party, that is saying that we need to make change, that are saying it's going to be hard, that is saying that people, true patriots, need to almost like a Lord Falconer moment. The people need to get involved. Despite that, and you will seek fulfillment. That's sacrifice. And it's almost like a biblical term. Almost like, the whole premises about Christianity is about sacrifice. And through sacrifice, it brings flourishing. It brings positivity. It brings the best things that you can through your life. It brings this country back off its knees. It wakes up the British lion. Like you keep seeing that memes all over social media. So definitely excited. Yeah, I'd do it. If they were calling for MPs here right now, right? And maybe they might say, look, you've been on social media too much. Your social media is too much of the right-leaning. It's not going to be helpful, right? I understand that, right? But I would absolutely answer the call. I would step forward. And it's the first party that I would say that I would be able to have a chance. It feels like this is the first party that I would have a chance to be able to make that change. Definitely exciting. I was, as soon as that video came out, as soon as Rupert Lowe announced it, all my fears just went, because I know for a fact that this is our only chance. And, a couple of years ago, I thought Reform was that. And seeing at their performance, seeing them kick Rupert Lowe out, that's what that would do to me, when they kicked Rupert Lowe out of Reform. And you just saw that sort of tabloid style, sort of Jeremy Kyle-esque. Isn't that ironic that Jeremy Kyle advises their MPs and media-facing people of Reform? But anyway, that sort of just absolute craziness that happened with Rupert Lowe, where they claimed that he had a fight with Zia Youssef and whatever else, right? That's when I left. And I was totally disenfranchised. And then after that, I was totally disenfranchised. But now that spirit has come back, and I'm really happy about it. Really, really happy about it. But yes, let's see what happens over the next few years, because it's all well and good. Restore Britain and Rupert Lowe coming out and saying we're gonna do this party. They've got to do it now. They've got to recruit. They have got to recruit. They've got to get the best people there. They claim to be an umbrella party. In fact, that was quite interesting today. I saw Zia Youssef. So he's the party chairman of Reform, and pegged to be the person that will take over Nigel when he eventually hangs up his boots. The guy that bought his position in Reform, and they kicked out Ben Habib at the time, which insane. But he went on television, and they were speaking to him about coalitions, and he didn't rule out any sort of coalition, whether it was Tories, whether it was with Restore Britain. They weren't ruling him out, and Restore Britain's party is said to be an umbrella party, to absorb all the little local parties that exist, to try and have a good chance at this next general election. And I put a tweet today. Could you imagine if Restore Britain hit it that hard? That their umbrella party ends up being an umbrella over top of Reform? Now that would be a fucking good thought. That's an exciting thought. So long as they kick out all the Tory deadwood and all the rubbish in there that just to keep Nigel Farage's nose powder nosing, keeps his powder dry, Now, I was going to talk about Peter Mandelson after this, right? As you might see in my description, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to talk about that idiot today because I'm just really, really happy that this is happening. Really, really happy that there's a new movement, a new political party. Really, really happy that I feel like for the first time in a long time that I am not politically homeless. And I look forward to seeing what happens over the next few months and years. They've definitely lit the beacon, and I absolutely love it. So anyway, if it's the first time you're watching me, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever you're watching me on. I'm on Rumble, and I'm also on YouTube. Give me a follow, give me a like, give me a few comments, constructive comments, please. Let me know what you think. Let me know where I can do better. This is a two-way street, so in my future streams, get in the comments. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you got to say. I want to know what people are thinking. I want to know what the word is on the street. And I look forward to speaking to you all next Sunday. You'll probably see this snippeted up all over my social media over the next week, to the point where you probably can watch it all. By the time you get to Friday, you can probably watch it all on TikTok. But yes, thanks for listening. Really, really happy. And I'll see you next Sunday.